Hi, this is Siyoung, and today we're going to go over 6th grade lesson 31. So let's start off with number 1, which is solving equations, and by the definition, it contains equal sign. So let's work on number 1. So it says on the direction that solve for a variable, which means that the letters, in this case x, and for number 2 is p. So in order to solve for x, you have to get the x by itself on the one side of equation. And what it means by the one side of equation is that this is one side of the equation, this whole thing, which is 12, and it's called right side of the equation. And this side, all this side is called left side of the equation, which is 4x. But you know how in the left side of the equation you have 4 and x, so you have to get the x by itself. And if I write it down, it can be written as 4 times x equals 12, right? And by simply, if you want to get x by itself, you just divide 4 to cancel out, because 4 over 4 is just 1. And 1 times x is just 1. So this means that you have to and don't forget that you have to divide the same number on both sides. And I can write this as 1 times x equals 12 over 4. And as you know, 12 over 4 is just 3, right? And 1 times x is just x. So x is 12 over 4, which is 3. And don't forget to check. You just need to substitute the answer that you get on the original question. So 4, and we got x is a 3 and equal to 12. And 4 times 3 is 12, and we got the right answer. Okay, for number 2, it's actually p over 7 equals 3, right? And this means that you divide a number by 7 and you get 3. So same as the last one, same as the previous question, you just need to get the p by itself on the one side of the equation. So what you have to do is multiply 7 on the both sides, because you have to get rid of 7. And you can write this as 7p over 3 is 7 over 1, because all the numbers can be written as 2 over 1 or like 3 over 1. This means it's just 2, and this means just 3, because every number divided by 1 is just that number. So times p over 7, which means that they can simplify. And we left as 1 p over 1 is just p, like this example. So you cancel out 7 right here, so you get p by itself. 3 times 7, which is p, equals 21. And we have to check, right? 21 over 7 is 3, and 21 divided by 7 is 3. So this shows that we got the right answer. And for number 3, this is a good example of actually applying the concept of the equation, because 3 is 1n, right? And 1 times n is just n, because as you know, 1 times 2 is just 2, 1 times 3 is just 3. So whatever the n is, it's going to be just n. So 3 equals n, which means that n equals 3. And we got the answers, because so we can check 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is just 3. We got the right answer. And let's move on to inequalities. And for this one, like same concept as the equation. You have to leave the variable by itself to figure out how to draw the graphs. So for this one, a plus 7 is greater than 20, right? So in order to get the a by itself, you just have to subtract on the both sides by 7. And 7 minus 7 is just 0. And a plus 0 is just 0, right? So we can rewrite this equation, is this one, as a is greater than 20 minus 7. And a is greater than 13. 20 minus 7 is just 13. So now we can graph the inequality graph. So we just put 13, and a is greater than, so this one is positive and left side is always negative and right side is always positive. And since the a is greater than 13, it goes on the right side because it's positive and bigger than 13. And since the sign over here is not equal to, just greater than, you have to have open circle. So let's move on to number 5, which means that this one can be written as a over 5 is greater than 12. Like the same concept, you have to leave the a by itself in order to graph. So multiply by 5, 5 cancels out, as the same reason that we did on the equation, and you have to multiply 5 on the both sides, so a by itself, a is greater than 12 times 5, and a is greater than 60. So the reason is that, the rules of inequality is that if you divide or multiply a negative number, the sign changes. That's the only exception when the sign flips, opposite side. So in order to graph, you just need to put the 60, the number, over here, and see if the variable is greater or less than this number. And as we can see that the a is greater than 60, we can say that this is positive side, like I said. So it goes this way with open circle because it's just greater than, not greater than, equal to. So it's open circle. And if I quickly go over, this one is also open circle, and open circle. For this one, you just need to divide by 4 on both sides, subtract 3 on both sides, and add 18 on both sides to get the variable by itself. That's the biggest concept of this question. And for this one, write an inequality for the word sentence. This requires you the skill of reading and understand what the question is saying. X is greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to means that this one, and x is greater than equal to the number, which is 7. And we can now graph if we get this equation right. We just draw 7, pretend that this is the number line, 7, and x is greater than equal to. So greater, equal to, close circle, and this is positive side, negative side goes on the right side. Because this is greater than. Every else question is literally the same. And let's quickly go over number A, which is A equals BC, and A is the result of the product of the BC. So we can write it as 355 is 55, and C we don't know. And in order to get the C by itself, which is variable in this case, just divide 55 on both sides, and the C is, if you divide, the result is 7. And you can check by just multiplying 55 times 7 and see if you get 355. Okay, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.